All right, Max, what are we reviewing today? And anyone else watching this? Today, we review As the Crow Flies. This is an interesting one, especially for my scoring system. We'll get into that. But it's a sweet story about Charlie, who is queer, and she's on this all girls trip with strong feminist vibes that takes her out of her comfort zone in the middle of nowhere, no technology reception, and then the girls in the story all have their own personalities as well as the like camp counselors bringing them along. High level, it's that kind of a story. Starting off with our patent pending scoring system, wish I would have used marker for this. Characters, I gave this a strong 7 overall. I want to show a couple of the intro pages here to give a sense too. This is a very relaxing book. See here the very first page. Could almost talk about the artwork first, but it's against the grain. But you get a lot of really beautiful nature shots and Charlie intermixed in them. It's a very cool book too because I think Charlie is a super interesting character. She both is like often fighting against some of these microaggressions she experiences with the other girls, but at the same time, like is really searching her own faith in a way that feels really authentic. Like she believes what she believes and she's trying to like make sense of her world with it. The other like one of her really good friends here is like a very interesting character, as well as like the camp counselors. And I think something I like about the characters in this book is often they end up being a bit surprising. Some of the characters that you don't imagine will say something like they do and end up sort of surprising you at times. I think also the strength is that they really fixate on this small cast, all with very different people. The camp counselor is sort of also telling this epic tale of, or spinning this yarn about this original feminist icon that started this hike. It's all very interesting, and I think it's like the formula for me that almost has to lead to a good character score. Small cast of characters, you care about them emotionally, and they all are distinct enough that it's pretty easy to remember them. A little bit of a doc because some of the characters don't quite meet that, but I think the core group of characters do. In terms of the art, also thought it was really strong. 7. I showed a bunch of this, but like this book reminded me of this video game called A Short Hike, where you're sort of like there's no enemies. It's a very relaxing game. You're completing like fetch quests almost along an island, and the more sort of well you do, the more you can fly, which like enables you to search more, and it's like a very like nice virtuous feedback loop. I really enjoyed the art. Like I like the colors. I like how much nature comes out in this book. I've already showed enough of those pages to probably get the idea across. But I really think that's like a strength of this book. If you want something that almost is like a very relaxing, bouncing kind of story artistically, I think this is a really good one. Very readable. I'll get into that later. History and culture. I gave this a 3. I think that it's all in the United States. I think the closest history and culture you get, honestly, feels a bit about the like the Christian camp. Those definitely exist. I've gone to those myself. And also, I think the history culture part is like you really get to see the land in a way that sometimes they skip over in these graphic novels where they're so focused on the characters, the story, maybe some historical famous event. I love just the fact that you could kind of like dwell in the imagery and the vegetation and the shape of the land. And in that sense, I think there is like something you'd be like a digital tourist to America if you've never been there in this region. But are they really tackling like big issues? I mean, arguably yes, they're obviously touching on like various parts of identity and things like that. But I think I'm maybe comparing this against the recent litany of books where you're talking about 500 years against indigenous people. You're talking about like civil war riots that lead to deaths. The stakes just aren't as high. It's not as focused on, I think, trying to teach you something historically necessarily. It's more about the characters and their growth. But I still think you get a good sense of like American landscapes, American land through this book, which is cool. Readability is a 9. I read this all essentially in one sitting. I think that is hard not to give it almost a perfect score. It might have been 2 sittings, which is why I docked it a little bit. Again, many pages are very light on the text. Some have none at all, as I've shown many times. I think you care about the characters and you're like interested in them. I think the coupling of strong art with um, characters you care about and the minimalist approach here is, maybe this is also such a breath of fresh air because I've had a couple reviews lately where they're just dense and like difficult to get through. So very readable. X Factor. Um, I give it a 6. It's partially an X Factor actually for me because again I don't always read books that seem to like be comfortable dwelling in more of just like the scenery and the visuals, which I really enjoyed. Something else unique about this book, almost to its detriment, which is kind of why some of the other scores could be higher, but I almost had to knock it a little bit. This is actually a web comic that is still ongoing, and they converted it into this nice graphic novel. Here's the problem, without giving a spoiler, this book is not done. Like, so I read this whole thing and they were building the entire time towards this kind of like ceremony that just frankly never happens. So do I like this? I like this quite a lot. I think it's a really nice story, and especially if you again want almost like that short hike video game experience of like a bouncy, fun, outdoorsy, like I think feel good experience, which also grapples with real stuff around identity. And like I love how they intertwine faith and feminism in a really interesting way, kind of challenging feminism in an interesting way, where you learn that nobody's perfect, even some of these icons that they're doing this experience based off of. So um, I just think that maybe it's strategic, but releasing a book like this that doesn't end felt very much like I wasn't even sure if this was like an allegory or something. Like when I got to the ending, I'm like, oh, is this like a Waiting for Godot thing where like it just ends abruptly, and I'm like, it was actually leading you towards this in some way, and there's like a deeper meaning behind it. No, it just turns out they published like half the book before the webcomic is even done. So there's it's a choice. Not my favorite choice. If I think it's a great book. Melanie Gillman. I didn't even mention the author. Very cool art, very nice characters, bouncy, fun experience. I think it's lighthearted. Uh, Wait until the whole thing's out, because then you just kind of like leave people in the dark, and like who knows if I ever find the second version. This just might just be one of those like, you know, anyway, so that's my main critique. Overall, though, still a 6.4, which you can barely see on the pencil. Solid book. I'd pick it up, especially if some of these themes, um, you know, resonate with you. And as always, I'm going to keep bringing up my children's book, but I can't go to bed yet. If you haven't heard about it, oh my gosh, it's great. If you're interested, check out the Amazon link in the YouTube video. If you have young kids and they struggle to go to bed, if you have friends or family and you're looking for a gift, or if you yourself are a 2 to 6 year old kid, this is a perfect book for you. So I hope you pick it up. And until next time.